The Eastern Conference first round is going to be very interesting. After the Wizards win against the Pacers, the bracket has been set up and it looks very exciting. I'd like to remind you to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's start off with the middle of the pack matchup, the 4 and 5 matchup, the Knicks versus Hawks. Both these teams are young and have many players making the playoffs for the first time. This should be a very interesting series as many people cannot really make a strong prediction on one side or the other one. I think this series is going to be very competitive. Hawks have a lot of firepower and are amazing in offense, which is ranked 8 in the league, and have a below average defense ranked 21st. The Knicks are opposites. They have the third best defense in the league, led by Thibodeau's amazing defensive gameplay, and have a below average offense ranked 23rd. Let me put it this way. I believe this series is either going to be Hawks in 6 or Knicks in 7. As mentioned before, the Hawks also have many young players who are making the playoffs for the first time. Their best players such as Young, Bogdanovic and Collins have never made the playoffs. And I really don't trust this team to win a Game 7 in Madison Square Garden with 15,000 fans booing at them and Tom Thibodeau on the other side as a coach. The Knicks, on the other hand, have players such as Rose, Taj Gibson, who are quite experienced in the playoffs. Julius Randle has made it before, but this will actually be his first real playoffs as he's their number one option. Though players such as RJ Barrett, Emmanuel quickly will be having their first taste of the big stage, I trust this Knicks team more than the Hawks in a Game 7. On the other hand, I'm confidently going to say Hawks in 6 is just as possible as Knicks in 7. The Hawks have turned it up a notch in the second half of the season. Them getting Bogdanovic back and changing their coach to Nate McMillan has helped them a lot. Bogdanovic plays a six-man role and he does an amazing job at it. He's averaging a career-high 16 points per game and displays the second ball handler role and a playmaker role. He's shooting 46% from the field and 40% from 3. His off-ball game is just as good as his on-ball game. Him taking the ball out of Trae Young's hands is just what they need. The Hawks are a well-built deep team. They have players such as Huerter, who is shooting 36% from 3 and is a sniper. Wings such as Cam Reddish, who has been decent offensively and great defensively. And Hunter, another wing who's been amazing defensively and offensively and will probably be given the matchup of Randall. Both of them are expected to be back for the series. Gallinari, who has been another great off-the-bench player and has been scoring really well in the games he has played and has improved from the sloppy start he had to the season. And the recent trade deadline addition in Lou Williams, who has been amazing since the trade off the bench. Now let's talk about their best player, Trae Young. Trae Young is a 22-year-old star point guard who is averaging 25.3 points per game and 9.4 assists per game. His scoring has gone down from last year, but I can confidently say he has been better. He had an empty stats tag to his name last year. He didn't make an all-star team this year, but he's playing winning basketball. His usage has gone slightly down, but his offensive shares have gotten better. He's turning the ball over less, and his assist to turnover ratio has gone up. He still scores 30 plus points on any given night. He has many more options to pass the ball this season. It'll be really interesting how he plays against the Knicks defense. This is his first time under so much pressure against such a great defensive team. He'll have to be the best player in the series for the Hawks to win this series. The Hawks run pick and rolls quite frequently with 34.5 pick and rolls per game. John Collins and Capella are one of the best rollers in the league who make the Hawks one of the best pick and roll teams in the league. My main concern about this team is their inexperience in the playoffs and their defense, which might play a big part in the series. I break down the Hawks in much detail in a video I've made previously if you really wanted analysis of the team. Moving on to the Knicks side of things. The Knicks have been a revelation this season. They have exceeded everyone's expectations. No one with a sane mind before the season would have predicted the Knicks holding home court advantage over the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics this season. They've been overachieving all season, but can they overachieve one more time? The Knicks this year are led by their defense. I know Julius Randle is having a near top 5 MVP level season this year, but taking nothing away from his sensational breakout season, I think the teams which have amazing defenses are always underrated. Usually their best player who puts up stats is given a lot of their credit when it isn't really the case. I love watching Randle, but I really believe their defense and their coach don't get enough credit. Anyways, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to make a case from the Knicks side of things. So as mentioned before, the defense is their biggest strength. And when you actually look at their team, you realize they don't have a lockdown elite defender. The reason behind their defensive success is effort. In quoting one of Anthony Edwards' great interviews this season, coach can really tell us what to do and how to do it, but the players have to go out there and do the stuff. Defense is all about effort. Though this his interview wasn't completely true, the Knicks are showing how effort alone can take you a certain distance on defense. The Knicks have been a subpar on offense. Randall has taken a gigantic step on offense. Rose has been a consistent second option, and Barrett has improved his shooting drastically. Still, their three-point shooting isn't that amazing, and they aren't really a great offense. Randall is an All NBA player. He's going to win Most Improved Player this season unanimously, and rightfully so. No one saw him breaking out at such a high level. He's been amazing to say the least. His 3-point percentage has gone up from 27% to 41% on higher volume. He's shooting better from the field on higher volume. His playmaking has taken a drastic jump. The offense runs through him. He's their go-to guy in the clutch and has done a damn good job at it. He's always been a very talented player, and this season he's taken it to the next level. People called him out for having one of the worst contracts in the league last year, and he has proved everyone wrong. Moving on to the next player, Derrick Rose. D Rose is a six man of the year finalist. He probably would have won it if he wasn't injured and played the entire season with the Knicks. He's been their second best player in the clutch and their secondary ball handler. He's a great finisher at the rim and is a much improved shooter. He's having one of his best seasons since his ACL injury before after his MVP season, and has played a great part in the Knicks' success in the second half of the season. He's averaging 15 points per game and 4.2 assists per game on 41, 41 and 89 splits. I know there have been more reasons for the Knicks' success, but I want to move on to my prediction. As I said before, it's going to be either the Hawks in 6 or Knicks in 7, and I am personally going to be on the Hawks side. The Hawks are a very deep team and much more talented. The reason they are going to win, according to me, is the 4 through 8 in the Hawks are much better than the 4 through 8 of the Knicks. The Knicks have had an amazing story. They have overachieved all season, and the season as a whole is a win for them. Though I picked the Hawks to win this series, I really wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks won this series in 7 games. Moving on to the next matchup, the rematch of last year's Eastern Conference semifinals. The Heat versus the Bucks. This season, the Bucks have 3 new positive signs. Jrue Holiday is averaging 17.3 points per game and 6 assists per game on 50, 39, 78 splits. He's playing elite defense and is one of the smartest players in the league. He's a great spot-up shooter and a brilliant player off the ball. Also, he's an amazing playoff performer who is very clutch. He's won games in the clutch for the Bucks, and he's the best guard defender in the league and has shown what he can do with the best perimeter players in the league. He's a great fit next to Giannis, which really helps the Bucks. The second positive this season is Chris Middleton's playmaking improvement. Middleton is one of the best isolation scorers in the league, who makes his shot a near 50-40-90 efficiency. This scoring allows him to improve his playmaking. He has had the best chemistry with Giannis on the team. He's an underrated finisher and has amazing footwork. He's in the 70th percentile in pick and roll efficiency in the league, which is very impressive. His pick and roll with Giannis is amazing. If the player drops, Middleton is one of the best off the dribble shooters in the league and a sniper from mid range. If they double team him, Giannis is one of the best rollers in the league, who Middleton finds more often than not. If they call in for help defense, Giannis is also averaging nearly 6 assists per game and can find an open man or rotate the ball very well for an open 3, which the Bucks have been really great at hitting this season. Last, but according to me, the most important change they've made this season is that they're changing. The Bucks have been one of the most stubborn teams in the league, to say the least. They used to defend opponents by leaving open threes, which led them to losing against the same Heat team last year. They didn't switch on defense and dropped a lot during pick and rolls. Now, they're 8th in the league in switching, and the main reason behind this is they play Giannis at the 5. They play clutch lineups of Holiday, Middleton, DiVincenzo, their trade line acquisition of PJ Tucker, and Giannis at the center. This allows them a much more flexible lineup and one of the best depth lineups in the league. Though Giannis' shooting is better this season, he really still doesn't have a reliable jump shot, which gives me the doubts about how he's going to fight against the wall. And moving on to the Heat side of things. The Heat started off the season sloppily. They were hit hard by COVID and injuries were rough. Since Jimmy Butler caught fire, they've been rolling. They're the sixth seed in the East and we're only a game behind the fourth seed. Butler is having a career season and is quietly averaging 22 7 and 7. His playmaking has improved and is the primary ball handler. He's also a player who plays defense on an all defensive level, which makes him one of the most elite two-way players in the league. He's a player who will turn it up in the playoffs, which makes it scary. Last year, he improved his scoring when the lights were brightest and stamped himself as one of the 10 best players in the league. Another player who has improved this season for the Heat is Bam Adebayo. Bam is now a top 5 defender in the league, and some might argue he was even last season. He's averaging 3 more points on higher volume and higher efficiency. He's one of the most versatile players in the league. His mid-range game has been fantastic and he's taking the leap the Heat expected him to. Though he can still be more aggressive as Butler keeps calling him out, he has been exceptional. But the problem with this Heat team is that underrated player and roster losses. Jay Crowder was a big part of their run last year. He shot lights out offensively and brought real energy to the team defensively. He was a player who was part of the wall and yet let Giannis run over him again and again and again. They did try and replace him with Ariza getting him in the trade deadline, but he's been maybe half of what Crowder was last year. He might be a better perimeter defender than Crowder, but he isn't really the body Crowder was for guarding Giannis. Kelly Olynyk also was a big part of the three-point shooting who gave them floor-stretching ability last year, who wasn't really replaced. Nemanja Bjelica has not been what they hoped for. Tyler Hero has been inconsistent throughout the season, but his three-point shooting will need to be on fire the playoffs again. Both him and Duncan Robinson were pivotal parts of their victory last year, and both of them haven't been on the same level of shooters as they were last year. With the Bucks switching more often this season, it will be harder for them to get their shots which they got last year. Goran Dragic also hasn't been on the same FIBA level Dragic as he was last year. All in all, they haven't really been the same as last year. They will have Jimmy Butler being guarded by Jrue Holiday, which is a much tougher matchup. The players really will need to turn it up for the playoffs for them to repeat what they did last year. All in all, I picked the Bucks to win this series in 6. The addition of Jrue Holiday really does improve the Bucks extraordinarily, and with the Heat losing some pivotal parts of their finals run, I picked the Bucks to win it this time around. Moving on to the two series which I really don't believe are going to be close, the 76ers versus the Wizards and the Nets versus the Celtics. The 76ers are the worst possible matchup for the Wizards. Ben Simmons and Thibault are two players I genuinely believe can lock down both Russell Westbrook and injured Bradley Beal. The Wizards' big men have been better off late, but no one is really stopping Embiid. Embiid should average nearly 40 points in this series and absolutely feast on the Wizards' interior defense. The Wizards also attack the paint a lot on offense. And Embiid is a great rim protector and arguably a top 5 defender in the league, which and the Wizards going into the paint will not really be a good idea. I loved Russ having an historical run with Beal scoring at an elite level to propel the Wizards into the playoffs after a disappointing start to the season. But 6 and 4, and it isn't even a debate. Another interesting part about this series, which I really look forward to, is going to be the beef between Westbrook and Embiid, which might be rejuvenated this year and will be real fun. And finally, the Nets versus the Celtics. This series also, I believe, would have been really fun if Jaylen Brown was healthy. The Nets might use this series for the big three to get more reps together. Though it might be disrespectful to the Celtics, it is what it is. The only way the Celtics are going to be able to match the Nets is if Tatum is going to have an all-time series throughout and match KD scoring while being able to defend him at a high level. Kemba Walker needs to play at the star level consistently and match whatever Kyrie Irving does on offense. But still, it leaves Harden who can go off. They might have to hope for a playoff Harden clunker and Marcus Smart playing good defense on him. All in all, I really don't see this happening. The Nets are a much more talented team. The Celtics are slightly better on defense, but without Jaylen Brown, they're a subpar defense. Expect a lot of buckets in the real high-scoring games this series. I'm expecting Jason Tatum to go off for one game for about 60 points and maybe win it for them. So I picked the Brooklyn Nets in 5 and I really wouldn't be shocked one bit if it's a sweep. And that's all I have for the Eastern Conference playoff preview, and I would really appreciate if you left your thoughts and discussed what you think about my opinion on these playoffs. And I do think I'm going to be releasing a Western Conference first round preview anytime soon. Thank you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.